I followed my wife on her shopping trip. What I found changed everything. Reddit cheating stories. I never thought I'd be the kind of husband who doubted his wife. For 10 years, Emily had been my world, my best friend, my confidant, the woman who stood beside me through thick and thin. But lately, something had changed. The warmth in her eyes had dimmed. Her laughter seemed forced. And her new, shopping trips, every Saturday afternoon began to stretch longer and longer. 3 hours turned into 5, 5 turned into the entire day. I tried to ignore it at first. Told myself I was being paranoid. But deep down, a voice whispered that something wasn't right. Then one Saturday, she kissed me on the cheek, grabbed her purse, and said she'd be going shopping again. I smiled and waved as she left, but the second her car turned the corner, I grabbed my keys and followed. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as I kept a few cars behind her. I felt sick to my stomach, part of me praying I'd find nothing, just a regular shopping spree. But another part of me needed answers. She didn't drive toward the mall like she usually claimed. Instead, she took a turn toward the other side of town, the older district with quiet cafes and little boutiques. After about 20 minutes, she parked in front of a small clothing shop. I watched from a distance as she stepped out, her hair shining under the afternoon sun, her phone in hand. Then a man appeared. He was tall, dressed casually, maybe in his mid-30s. Emily smiled when she saw him, a smile I hadn't seen in months. The kind that used to be reserved just for me. They hugged. My chest tightened. My breath caught. And in that moment, my world cracked. I snapped a few pictures with shaking hands, though I wasn't even sure why. Maybe I needed proof. Maybe I just couldn't believe it was real. They walked inside together, laughing. I could barely see through the store window, so I waited. Every minute felt like an hour. When they finally came out, they were carrying shopping bags. Emily looked happy. Too happy. Then the man touched her arm, leaned in close, and whispered something that made her blush. She playfully hit his shoulder, something I'd seen her do countless times with me years ago. I couldn't take it anymore. I started the car, ready to confront them right there, but something in me held back. Maybe it was fear, maybe pride. I followed them instead. They stopped at a small coffee shop nearby. She looked so comfortable with him, it was like I was watching a scene from a life I no longer belonged to. They sat outside. She reached across the table and took his hand. My heart broke completely. I felt the betrayal like a physical wound. I was about to leave, about to drive away and never look back, when I saw something unexpected. A little girl, maybe 4 or 5, ran up to them, shouting, "Mommy." My heart froze. Emily immediately stood up, hugged the child tightly, and smiled. Then the man stood too, and kissed the little girl on the forehead. My mind spun out of control. "Mommy." I watched in stunned silence as Emily kneeled, fixing the girl's hair. The man picked her up and carried her toward the car. Emily waved goodbye to them, her smile fading as they drove away. Then she sat back down at the table, her eyes watery, her shoulders slumped. She wasn't glowing anymore. She looked broken. I sat there, confused, my emotions a storm of anger, pain, and disbelief. What the hell was going on? I decided to confront her, not as an accuser, but as a husband desperate for truth. I walked toward the cafe, my steps heavy. When she saw me, her eyes widened in shock. "Mark, what are you?" "I could ask you the same thing," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Who was that man? And that child?" Her lips trembled. "You followed me. Don't turn this around," I snapped. "Tell me the truth." She looked down at the table, silent for a long moment. Then she whispered, "That little girl is my daughter." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I laughed bitterly. "You're what?" Tears streamed down her face as she began to explain. Before we met, she had been in a relationship with a man named Daniel. He was her first love, but the relationship ended when he left her unexpectedly. Months later, she found out she was pregnant, but Daniel was gone. She gave the baby up for adoption because she couldn't raise a child alone. She never told me about it. Now, years later, Daniel had tracked her down with the little girl, their daughter, asking if Emily would like to meet her. Emily agreed, but she didn't know how to tell me. She was afraid I'd see her differently, that I'd think she'd been hiding something unforgivable. I stood there speechless, shame and guilt flooding my chest. I had followed her, doubted her, assumed the worst, when all she'd done was try to make peace with her past. Why didn't you just tell me? I asked quietly. Because I didn't want to lose you, she whispered. You've always seen me as someone strong, someone perfect. I didn't want you to look at me and see a mistake. I sat down beside her, took her hand, and for the first time in months, really looked at her. The woman I loved wasn't betraying me, she was trying to heal. We sat in silence for a long time before I finally said, next time, don't go through something like this alone. I want to be part of everything, your past, your pain, your healing. She nodded, tears falling freely now. I'm sorry. I squeezed her hand. So am I. The drive home that day felt lighter. The air between us wasn't filled with suspicion anymore, but with honesty. Later that evening, we talked for hours, about her past, about that little girl, about how we could maybe be part of her life in some small way. It wasn't easy. Trust had been shaken, but something deeper had been built in its place, understanding. Sometimes the truth hurts not because it's ugly, but because we're too scared to face it. And sometimes, following your instincts doesn't uncover betrayal, it uncovers a story that needs to be told. That day changed everything for me. It taught me that love isn't about perfection, it's about patience, forgiveness, and the courage to listen before judging. Because if I hadn't followed her that day, I might never have learned how strong her heart truly was.